Hey guys, it's me Seren back with another video. So I just came home from seeing Hidden Figures and I wanted to film this video for you guys because I loved it so much. I might have to get up at a certain point during this video and turn some more lights on because I actually saw this movie in kind of like the late afternoon and it's starting to get dark now. But this video is probably not going to be that long, so hopefully, like, the light stays good or whatever. I told you guys I bought a new lamp, but that lamp is really bright. It really makes me feel like I'm sitting in front of a spotlight being interrogated. So maybe at one point I'll film something with it on just so you guys can see it, but it's super bright. It's way too bright. So, Hidden Figures. I loved it. I loved it so much. I might see it again. The theater was super packed, so I think I might try and see it again maybe in like a couple weeks. But I loved it so much. It was so good. So for those of you that don't know, Hidden Figures is based off of a book that's also called Hidden Figures, and basically the book is about the untold stories of the African American women mathematicians that were working at NASA in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, pre-integration. You guys know how I feel about integration, but pre-integration, and the fact that they were literally hidden figures. They were hidden away. They were working in like this like basement office on like the West Campus, which you like see in the movie, and they like weren't allowed to put their names on any of the work, and they were hidden figures. They were hidden from view until this woman wrote this book a few years ago, and now it's been turned into a movie. And it just really goes to show how we learn revisionist history. We 100% learn revisionist history in school. Like, we've all learned about, the moon landing in school. Every American has learned about something about the moon landing in school, something. And yet, when you're sitting in school, they don't really find it appropriate. They don't see fit to teach about the women mathematicians in general, and especially the Black American, the African American women mathematicians that were instrumental in, getting Americans up into space and to the moon and safely back. And it's funny because I saw this meme on Twitter that was like, when your whole life you believed the moon landing was a conspiracy, and now all of a sudden they tell you that Black women did it, so it makes sense. And it was just very funny to me because I've seen those like conspiracies that like the moon landing never happened and what have you. And it's funny to think about like, oh, people don't believe that, we have the technology, the brain power, in the 60s. I saw another meme like a long time ago that said like, they didn't even have like microwave oven technology, but you like want me to believe they like put somebody on the moon. But now when it's explained as like, actually they had these like brilliant Black women working on it, and so that was why they were able to get to the moon. It's like, oh, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. Basically, the plot of this movie is white men mess things up and they send for the Black women to come fix it. That is the plot. So the movie is about these three African American women that work at NASA. Katherine, later Katherine Johnson, who's played by Taraji P. Henson. Dorothy Vaughan, who's played by Octavia Spencer. Excuse me. And Mary Jackson, who's played by Janelle Monáe. And they're friends. They're close friends. But they each, even though Taraji P. Henson is like the lead of the movie as Katherine Johnson, each woman kind of has like her own subplot about basically the misogynoir that she's facing, pretty much the trials that she's facing as Black and a woman in this environment of NASA, as well as they dipped a little bit into the misogynoir that they receive within their own community, the Black American community. But it's not really heavily touched on, which I will say that if I had one criticism of the movie, it would be that they relied really heavily on the NASA stuff, which that stuff is brilliant and amazing, and it was incredible. It was really incredible to see, Black women in STEM, science, technologies, engineering, and math. But at the same time, I do wish they had showed just like a little bit more of like the personal lives of the women. Taraji P. Henson is widowed with 3 children. Janelle Monáe is married with 2 sons. And I don't even know if... And Octavia Spencer's married. She's married because we see her husband at some point when they're at a party. We see her like dancing with her husband. But there really wasn't that much like backstory given on their personal lives, just with Katherine Johnson, Taraji P. Henson's character, because the opening of the movie is them showing her as like a brilliant child, as a genius, as like a bona fide math genius. And so even though it's like the 20s, like late 20s, and they're, you know, her parents are trying to figure out how they can get her to school because most of the schools for Negroes don't go past the 8th grade, and you know, that's really a lot of the backstory and the kind of introduction to the personal lives of these women that we see. So I wish there was a little bit more backstory given about how, you know, they met their husbands, how they married them, how they ended up in, you know, NASA, you know, what, I mean, but I don't know, that probably would have made the movie like 3 hours, but you know, and a little bit of the misogyny that they touched on in the community, in the African American community, was mostly in the form of two men, Jim Johnson, who plays Katherine, Taraji P. Henson's, he courts her, like he dates her, and then later on he marries her. And he's played by Mahershala Ali, who I just talked about in Moonlight, which is so funny because Janelle Monáe was also in Moonlight playing his girlfriend. So it's funny to like see them again in this movie. But I'm like, put Mahershala Ali in all the movies. If every movie I see in 2017 has Mahershala Ali, and I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, I will be happy. But we see when he meets Taraji P. Henson's character, and they're talking about what she does, and she's talking about how she works at NASA, and he says something like, oh, I can't believe like they let women do that. And she's like, oh, you can't believe they let women do that? You know? So even though, that's like a prime example of, even though here's someone that, you know what it's like as a black man to be discriminated against because of race in, you know, 1965 Virginia, where the movie is set. You know what it's like to be discriminated against because of race, and yet you're discriminating against Taraji P. Henson because she's a woman, right? You're in shock that she's smart, that she's a woman, that she works for NASA, that NASA lets women work there. And later on, he apologizes, and they kind of work through it. But I wish I had seen a little bit more kind of, backstory and personal lives and involvement within the community, you know, the African American community, because that was a whole time. But I also think they were trying to like minimize it was not a movie explicitly about race, which was also extremely, extremely, extremely refreshing. Like, of course, the movie is about race because the movie is about the intersections of race and gender for these women that work for NASA, that are, you know, they're walking this tightrope of struggling with being both black and women. But at the same time, this is not a movie that's like beating you over the head with like a slave narrative, which I know you guys hate. It's not beating you over the head with like, this is racism, you know. The story is really about space and the space race and the role that these women played, you know. And it was incredibly powerful. It was incredibly powerful to witness and to know that these were real women, you know, these were real events. You know, this movie is based off of things that actually happened, and you know, it was really, really incredible. There's another scene that kind of dives into the misogyny that some of these women were facing at home with Janelle Monáe. So, like I said, each woman had her own subplot. So, Taraji P. Henson's Katherine Johnson was hired as a computer, which NASA hired a bunch of women to basically do the work of this, because this was pre-computers, right? They hired a bunch of women mathematicians to do the work of crunching the numbers to fucking send a human being up into space. And this was kind of thought of as like dirty work, you know, not like, oh, it's a hard job, somebody's got to do it. So 9 times, and it was, so that's why they hired women, you know, women that didn't have to get paid as much because they're women. And then later on, you know, black women, because they get paid even less. You can stick them in a basement, you can have them crunch all your numbers for you, give you the numbers, you write up the report, you slap your name on it, you know, and you say, I, white man, like sent these people to the moon, right? So Katherine Johnson was hired as a computer. She works as a computer for NASA, but she's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's a fucking genius. Like, and she's so smart that she ends up getting bumped up to, I don't want to give too much away. She ends up getting bumped up to, you know, the group where they're actively calculating how they're going to send someone to the moon. They're actively calculating how they're going to like get a man into space, because they have all these different groups and all these, you know, different departments with people doing all different things, right, at this NASA like station. So she ends up getting like sent to the place where they're doing like the very serious work. But yet again, she's still just seen as a computer. And she is the only black person working there. And there's one other woman working there, but it's not exactly 100%. I think she's, and Kevin Costner's in it. He's playing her boss. And I kind of got the feeling that this woman is like Kevin Costner's like secretary. Like, it's not really made clear what she does. But like, there's a scene when Taraji P. Henson like asks, "Where's the restroom?" And this white lady says, "I don't know where your restroom is," right? Because it's still like segregated bathrooms. So yet again, you're one of two women in this room. You go to the other woman, but she's a white woman and she can't help you because your race still separates you from her, right? So your race separates you from the other woman, and your gender separates you from all of the men. So you're truly alone, even though you're probably the smartest person in the fucking room. And they do not lay off of the brilliance of Katherine Johnson. Like, they don't understate it. They let it be known, like, this is a brilliant woman that is, you know, she's so brilliant that her brilliance can't be denied, right? In a time where, which is still now, like, please don't confuse me, like, say it in a time where, with me saying like that this type of thing is over, because it's not. It's still occurring in 2017. But you know, here is someone that's so smart, but she just has to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard, because people are looking down on her because she's black, and people are looking down on her because she's a woman. But she's so smart, she's like, fuck it, I'm getting it done, I'm doing it. So her story is basically of how she contributed. Basically, she did most of it, like the calculations. So Janelle Monáe's story is that she wants to be an engineer. She wants to be an engineer, but NASA doesn't let African Americans, for damn sure, or women into their engineering program. She has this mentor at NASA who's like, you need to be an engineer. Like, you're not just a computer. Like, you're not just, you know, doing permutations. You need to be an engineer. A spot opens up in their engineering program. Initially, she applies for it, and they tell her, like, we don't accept women, and we don't accept black people. Like, white men only. Okay, that's the way things work around here. So she ends up, you know, saying, fuck it, I'm applying anyway. I'm not going to get, like, too into it, because, again, you guys know I don't like to do too many spoilers. But that's her story. Octavia Spencer's story is basically that, so this movie's set in 1965. So they bring in an IBM, which was pretty much the first computer to start crunching the numbers. So Octavia Spencer is like, oh shit, after a certain point, they're not going to need us anymore to do the human, you know, calculations, because the computer does like 25,000 calculations in a fraction of a second faster than a human being could ever do. So she says, I need to learn about these computers. I need to learn how to code them. I need to learn how to program them. And she basically teaches herself how to code and teaches the other black women the basics of how to code, right? There's an amazingly, you know, poignant scene where Octavia Spencer goes to a library. It's a white-only library. She goes there with her 2 sons to check out a book on coding, right? And someone says, like, you need to go to the colored section of the library. She says, the book that I'm looking for is not there. And they kick her and her sons out of the library, right? That is an extremely important scene, because you have all these people that say, well, maybe black people just aren't interested in maths and sciences. Maybe women just aren't interested in maths and sciences. But it's like, you can't even if you have the interest, if you can't even get to the tools to explore, to learn about it, if you're being discriminated against because of race and gender, and especially both at the same time, for most people, they will feel like it's easier to just give up, you know? You have to really, really, really be, you know, determined. And that's just what makes it so funny, when you have people that will look you in your face and say black people just aren't interested in maths and sciences, women just can't do math. Like, shut the fuck up. It's a fight for us to even get in the room. You really sit there and try to pretend that we're just magically not interested? Come on, like, you know better. You know, the movie delved into microaggressions. On Taraji P. Henson's first day there, she walks in with her box of stuff, and somebody puts a garbage can on top because he thinks that she's a janitor. Like, he thinks that she's there to clean up the place. Now, she has her full, like, her work suit on. You know, and it's not a suit in the way that we would think of the suit. It's like a skirt suit. But she has, like, her suit, her top, her matching skirt, her heels, her glasses, her little hat. She's clearly not the fucking janitor. Like, she's clearly not there to clean, because she's black and a woman. He assumed. That is a microaggression. If you haven't seen my video on microaggressions, please watch. It will be popping up somewhere, right? please watch it. That was a microaggression. I assume where your place is, and there's no way that you could be here to calculate numbers, to crunch numbers, And it was just, they just touched on so much that I just love to see, and I just love seeing Black girls in STEM. Like, I loved it. Now, I hate math. Not my strong suit, creativity and writing and filming, but like to see Black girls in STEM is amazing. To see this, this period of time of the space race, because this is something that was going on simultaneously with the civil rights movement, but you so rarely see how these things were intersecting, and how these things were coinciding, and that Black people were also interested in the fucking space race, because in all the movies and the TV shows about space and the space race, 9 times out of 10 were invisible, like we weren't even there. So it was really amazing to see this time from an African American perspective. There's a scene where the astronauts that eventually go up into space are meeting the NASA employees, and they have the Black people standing apart, separate from the white people. Right? In another movie, in a different movie, you would not have even seen those Black people, right? You would have only seen the white people. The camera would have, cut them out like as if they weren't even there, right? And we see that so much with historical fiction, with TV shows and movies and books, like as if we weren't there. It was just really refreshing to see something that showed that, oh my God, Black people didn't just pop into being in 1975. Like, we were there, we were around for these major American milestones, which was amazing. I love Janelle Monáe's character. It's funny because, I'm really not that fond of her music. I love that she, does these big productions and Metropolis and Cindy Mayweather, but like her actual music doesn't do much for me. But I quite like her as an actress, and I hope she keeps doing movies. She was great. She was smart. She was mouthy. She was forward. There's a scene where she's talking to her husband about she's going to apply for this engineering position, and he's like, you're Black and a woman, and they're not going to like let you in. And she's like, well, like I have to try. Like I have to fucking try. Like she's on it the whole movie. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'm saying what's on my mind. I'm doing what I feel like I need to do, which I loved. You guys know me. I have a big fucking mouth. Oh, it's getting dark. Which I just love. And I just loved that they touched on so much, I love that they really had a handle on all this systemic shit that reverberates, Octavia Spencer wants the book to learn how to code because she's trying to stay ahead of the game, because she knows that at a certain point they're going to dissolve this human computer program because now they have this machine, right? But she can't get the book. Like, she's trying to get the book and she can't get the book. She can't get the book because of a systemic reason that she's not allowed in that section of the library. She's only allowed in the colored section, right? But it's like, if you can't get the book, then you can't learn. You can't get the necessary tools. You can't do what needs to be done because of a systemic reason, not because the interest isn't there, not because the will isn't there, because you are systemically kept out. Right? And even once the de facto segregation went away, the de jure segregation remained, with us being systemically kept out. Not in law, but in practice, which they even mention in this movie, because Janelle Monáe wants to take these engineering classes at this school that is an all-white school, right? And the judge says, Brown v. Board may have occurred in this country, but on a federal level, but here in the state of Virginia, our state still mandates that the schools be fucking segregated, and I don't give a fuck what the law says. That's very real. That is very real. Again, just like I talked about in my integration video, Brown v. Board had 14 pages, of deliberations that they came back with after they made their verdict, but not one of them had concrete, actionable solutions and methods for truly ending segregation, and therefore it never truly ended, and it was just, again, amazing to kind of see on the screen, like, look at that on the fucking screen. Look at that on the fucking screen, just because she's Black and a woman, no other reason. Like, again, she already works for NASA, she already has the mentor, she's intelligent, again, the intelligence is there, the interest is there, the will is there, just because she's Black and a woman. Like, racism is so illogical. Sexism is so illogical. This idea of just this accident of birth, you were born in this body, and so that means that systemically you get put on this path and you're supposed to follow it. just because of your race and your fucking gender. It makes no fucking sense. Like, it's wild. It's wild. It's so wild. You know, there's this running plot point of Taraji P. Henson having to go to her old building where they have all the black women working in the basement to use the bathroom. Because in the big building where they're working on the major shit, where she has gotten moved because she's a genius, there is no colored restroom. There are only white restrooms because the assumption is that there's only white people working there. So every day she loses 40 minutes to an hour of work because of a bathroom, because she has to run all the way to the colored bathroom and then come back. So you're in a space race. You're racing against the Russians and you're racing against the fucking commies, and you know it's so important that you get this done, but your biggest, best brain, you're losing an hour of work because she has to run to a colored bathroom because she's black. For no other reason than that she's black. It's illogical. It makes no sense, literally. And I love to see that really just like explicitly put on a screen of how white people are just, they're really willing to cut off their nose to spite their face to uphold the idea of white supremacy. Like, well, we don't really care, you know? Like, there's a, dang, I don't want to say too much because I just don't want to give too much away, because there are just some really powerful scenes where it's just really explicitly put on a screen how illogical it is and how white people will cut off their nose to spite their face to try to keep niggas in our place. Even if they need us. They needed Taraji P. Henson. Like, they needed Katherine Johnson. They needed her. Jim Parsons from Not How I Met Your Mother. What's the name of that show? Big Bang Theory is in it. And he hates Katherine Johnson. Like, his character, I can't remember his name. He hates Katherine Johnson, but he hates her purely because she's black and a woman. There's no other reason. She's always on time. She does her work. You know, when she shows rapidly how smart she is, Kevin Costner, who's the boss, assigns her to double check the work of everybody in there. Jim Parsons doesn't like that. I'm a white man. My work is good. How are you going to assign this woman and this black woman on top of that to check my work? Don't you know that black women are fucking inherently inferior? She's not going to check my work. Like, his hate is purely illogical because she's black and a woman, right? That is what we go through. You know, Taraji's doing the work and she keeps putting her name on the paper, and Jim Parsons' character keeps telling her, you don't put your name on the paper. Computers don't write reports. Only scientists, mathematicians, engineers like Janelle Monáe is trying to become. We write reports, okay? The white men write the reports. We put our name on the reports. You don't put your name on the report, you fucking computer, even though and she says like, well, it's my work, they're my calculations, my name should be on the report. And then these white people will look you in your face in 2017 and they will say, white people did everything and black people did nothing for this country. Like, no, y'all just put your fucking names on everything. Like, there was so much about this movie. I'm definitely gonna see this movie again. You better show the way that shit was. You better. I loved it. I highly recommend it. There were so many kids in there, so many black girls in there, which just was like, it's a perfect movie for kids to see, definitely, to just show, like, look what we do, even when we have all this adversity, you know, as black people as well as black women specifically. Look at what we do. That's why white people are afraid of us, because they see what we do with all these fucking systemic roadblocks that they put in our path that they can't even imagine. They can't even fathom what we would do if we came together and built outside of infrastructure and, you know, had equal of everything for real equality. They're scared of us because look at what we do. Look at the shit that we do. I love this movie so much. I'm definitely going to see it again. It was fucking amazing. So before I go, I want to read you guys just a little bit from an article so you guys can get a little bit more of a well-rounded idea. By the time NASA was preparing to send John Glenn into space, computers were used to calculate launch conditions. It wasn't long before then that the space agency and its predecessor, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, used computers in skirts to do all the number crunching. That's right. Humans, namely women, comprise the workforce known as the computer pool before the arrival of electronic data processors, aka computers, in the 1960s. Black women played a crucial role in the pool, providing mathematical data for NASA's first successful space missions, including Glenn's pioneering orbital spaceflight. Their work barely earned a mention in pop culture space tributes until this year, thanks to a best-selling novel and the forthcoming film. Right, like, so somebody decided when writing the curriculum, however many years ago, that included, the space launch, to leave that shit out, to leave it out. So you do not learn it. You just learn about the white men that were at the forefront of the project. Revisionist history. This is revisionist fucking history. This is revisionist history. Hidden Figures, starring Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, and Janelle Monáe, tells the story of 3 women from the pool. The film is based on Margot Lee Shetterly's best-selling book by the same name. Henson stars as Katherine Johnson, the 2015 National Medal of Freedom recipient who calculated the trajectory for America's first trip to space with Alan Shepard's 1961 mission. Amazing, amazing movie. Hot 2 thumbs way up. I cannot recommend this movie enough. Go see this fucking movie. As always, there will be tons of really, really interesting links, super interesting links this time around in the description box, so please check them out. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Love, 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 Hidden Figures. Peace.